Broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California. Your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, welcome back to the show. It is a crazy day in politics. It's coming at us from all angles. But before we get into any of the presidential stuff, did you see that even CNN, yes, someone in the left stream media, CNN's Don Lemon read his editorial on the tragic murder that occurred live on television. He was on the Tom Joyner morning show. He said that the killer was a racist. I don't know if we should call the media, except that he is the media. But it's so rare to ever hear truth out of the left stream media that I thought it was noteworthy. And I got a text late last night from our good friend AWR Hawkins, and it turns out that he was right. The gun that was used was purchased legally. So I just got a question. I don't think this is crazy. I don't think it's too far off the mark. But I have a question for Hillary Clinton. If this guy legally bought his gun, obeyed all the gun laws in the state, and all these states, they're always looking at new gun laws, right? One on top of the other. Every time there's a tragedy, it's a new excuse to seize control. It's a new excuse to take more and more of our rights away. I mean, the left loves Alinsky's method because it works. You get people all ginned up over their emotions. You get them all worked up. Now, in this one, you can't tearing down Confederate flags for a black racist ain't going to help anybody. I don't know. Maybe there's something else you can tear down. I don't know. But the upshot here is he legally bought his gun. He went out and he legally purchased his gun from a gun store. And so all the hue and cry of the left, the Hillary Clintons who are demanding more gun control, I think a little advice to the other people who are in the race. If I was Mitch McConnell, or Mitch O'Malley, I'd say, hey, why don't you throw down? Why don't you say, look, I believe in the Second Amendment, and I don't believe we should be diminishing it under the current situation. Or did I say Mitch O'Malley? I meant Martin O'Malley. But this guy's sitting there in the catbird seat. He's in the perfect position to actually pull a Trump and seize the moment. But I don't think he's going to do it because he doesn't understand that. And because of that, of course, they've got a new poll out showing Joe Biden surging and doing better than Hillary. This is shocking. We're going to have Carla Marinucci, the senior political reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle. She's going to be with us at the bottom of the hour. And we've got a great show coming up. We've got a guest coming up you're not going to want to miss in the 4 o'clock hour. Let me just tell you that. I'm not going to say anything more about it right now because I don't want to do anything but tease you. But you can always go to timdonnellyshow.com and see who will be coming up on the show. The best way to reach us is timdonnellyshow.com. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, email, and even on the phone. But I'm not going to give you the number right now because we're not going to take your calls until after the next break. But things are moving very quickly in the presidential race. We're going to be covering that in depth today because this literally determines the future of this country. And Hillary's massive problems have created an opportunity. Now, have you heard the latest?
Fill me in.
Oh, my word. I'm going to have to read this because it is so juicy that I just can't just say it. According to LA Times columnist George Skelton, he says Jerry Brown has never been in a better position to run for president than right now, particularly because of his 3 previous failed runs in 1976, 1980, and 1992. And if you're busy picking your chin up off the floor, Skelton adds that Brown has a quality that Democrat frontrunner Hillary Clinton lacks. Like Reagan and Trump, excuse this one comparison, Brown has an appealing ring of authenticity. Well, yeah, if you want a socialist who is owned by the enviro extremist, but he goes on. Brown has a record that he can crow about as governor of the most populous, most diverse state. Who really cares whether your state's diverse? Does that matter? I mean, I want it to be mixed with a lot more taxpayers and a lot less tax takers. That'd be a nice diversity. With the world's 8th largest economy, he has steered the state budget from a crippling deficit to a healthy surplus. Yeah, okay, let me rephrase that for you. He robbed you blind. He robbed your employer blind, so there's fewer jobs available in California, and a whole hell of a lot of taxpayers have left the state, leaving us in a precarious position because we have a massive influx of people who want to get on the dole here because we're so incredibly generous. And it doesn't even matter if you come in illegally. We'll still give you free stuff. He's still a Washington outsider, and he's unusually articulate and Really? Jerry Moonbeam Brown. George Skelton, maybe we can get George Skelton on and have him explain this because this is, it's too much. I'm not even going to do a poll to find out what you think about Jerry Brown being the next president, or maybe we should. Maybe that's today's theme. Jerry Brown, is his work not done?
Brown 16? Can we call it that?
No, you know it would be really great. I would love to see a debate between Jerry Brown and Donald Trump.
I wouldn't.
Really?
I think it would be so pathetic.
It wouldn't be fair because Donald Trump would destroy him with one hand tied behind his back. But Jerry Brown, all of the supporters of Trump or whoever is running, if Jerry became the candidate, would have to use the old slogan that they used when Ronald Reagan in 1966 ran for governor against a powerful incumbent, Jerry Brown's dad, Pat Brown. And what they said was, if it's Brown, flush it down. That was it. And I think it's still fitting. So with that, we will take a quick break and be back with more. Carlo Marinucci coming up at the bottom of the hour. 323-746-TALK. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. You are tuned in to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, former California State Assemblyman and gubernatorial candidate. Hey, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, We're going to have Marcia Hines, who has written an inspirational book about her son's recovery from autism. Given that we've been talking a lot about these vaccinations and there's all kinds of information about whether or not there's any link between mercury and autism, certainly now going to be considered at some point in the near future by the Congress. But it's Marcia Hines, and she's written a book about her son's journey called "I Know You're in There," and you're not going to want to miss her story. And coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're gonna be talking Trump, Hillary, Biden, and maybe even I can't say it. I cannot say this because there's no way on the planet Earth that Jerry Brown could be the next president of the United States. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. But it is there. He is being pushed by George Skelton at LA Times, trying to get him into this race on the strength of his record. And yet he thinks that he may actually stay out of the race and decide to run for Senator Dianne Feinstein's seat in 2018. Can you imagine that? Are you playing the piano in there? I think the Noskinator has doubled over in laughter in the production booth. I wish this was a video show. Yeah, it's definitely worth the price of admission here. 323-746-TALK if you're in favor of Jerry Brown becoming the next Democrat president of the United States so that he can do to the United States what he has done to our state. I know there's a lot of people who probably like him out of California, but I don't know. I think that's a little bit extreme.
Okay, how can he run the United States of America if he's barely running California?
Well, he's not running California. I mean, if you evaluate Jerry Brown by what he's done, let's do that. Let's paint by numbers anything other than Brown. Okay, so how's our economy doing? Well, we are continuing to lose productive businesses. Capital is fleeing and jobs are fleeing. So that's a big negative because it's one thing to go after the top 1% or the top 10% of wage earners and those who create wealth and basically just rob them blind. That's one way that you can, for a short period of time, you can spike the revenues coming into the state coffers. The problem with that is that does not set the stage for sustained economic growth because capital, like water, is always seeking the path of least resistance, but capital, much like a besieged spouse, I'll say that instead of a besieged husband so that I don't get a bunch of angry phone calls, but a besieged spouse really doesn't want to put up with the abuse, right? So what do? They look for an escape. Get out, flee the house, be outside cutting the lawn or hanging out with the buddies or whatever it is that you do. But capital is not going to sit there. That's money. That's people that have money are not going to sit there and be abused. They're going to take it and they're going to protect it. So you might get them the first time because Prop 30 was retroactive. So it was a gotcha game. But the minute that you give an individual a choice whether or not they want to be stolen from or not, no matter how eloquently you might sell the program and push the justification for stealing from them and robbing them, at the end of the day, people don't want to give their money for nothing. And they don't want to be targeted and abused and treated like garbage. So what are they going to do? They're going to leave the state. And that's why so many people, we went through one of those, an analysis of this. And we had over 100, I think it was 102,000, 103,000 have left the state who are productive taxpayers. And then we brought in over 200,000 people. It's like 175,000 net exchange of people coming in who are either on the dole or they're illegal aliens or they're people who are borderline. But they're not capital creators. They're not job creators. They're not people who are going to help grow the economy. Those are the people who left. And the question is, so if Jerry Brown has driven so many people out of California, if he has driven so much capital out in the name of, not in the name of great infrastructure projects. He didn't build the Hoover Dam. He didn't build any dams. He didn't fix the freeways. That's finally getting started at a major inconvenience to Californians. So what did he do? Oh, he's going to borrow $100+ billion from your kids and grandkids to build some stupid train that nobody wants, and he stole people's land and destroyed their businesses to do it. He's doing all that with borrowed money. He, instead of effectively dealing with the water shortage, he came in at the last minute into the urban areas and said, I'm going to punish anybody who takes too long of a shower. Well, even if everybody listened to him and nobody took showers anymore and we had a stinky state, it wouldn't make enough of a difference. Because while he's... I hate to give this visual, but while he's whip-snapping you with the towel in the shower, he's chased so many people out of the state. He's playing stupid little games. And, meanwhile, with the other hand, he's letting half the water go out to sea. So he's punishing you for your shower and the water that's going down the drain, but he's letting it drain out into the Pacific Ocean. No wonder people don't think that California is a state where they want to keep their capital, where they think it's sustainable. Because here's the thing. You don't put your hard-earned money at unnecessary risk. So if Jerry Brown became the president and did to the country what he's done to California, you'd have people fleeing the country and taking their capital and their jobs with them. And that's the last thing we need. I don't know. I'm curious what you think. And we will find out what Carla Marinucci, senior political reporter at San Francisco Chronicle, thinks. Because, I don't know, it just sounds like a crazy idea. Moonbat Brown for president. That would actually be kind of a funny sign. But the rest of the country is not as crazy as California. They wouldn't put up with him. Could you imagine Jerry Brown going to Iowa?
No way.
And taking all his crazy environmentalists with him and disrespecting all the farmers? I mean, because that's what he's done. The farmers in California hate Jerry Brown's guts. Not just because he cut off their water, but just the other day we had the story on about the farm workers. He won't even count their vote because he's so in the pockets of the union that he can't even stand up for one of the larger employers in the state and say, hey, if your workers don't want to be unionized, this is a free state. They have a right to make that decision. But Jerry Brown wouldn't even stand with them. So if he wouldn't stand with them, how would he ever win anybody in this country? He would be taken down by someone like Donald Trump so badly it would be like a sumo wrestler on a lightweight. He'd be pinned to the mat and he'd probably suffocate. I just don't see the United States, especially after the Obama experiment, picking Jerry Brown. But who knows? We'll be talking about it. Carla Marinucci coming up right after this break. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. I think that is perfect music to accompany Jerry Brown's potential bid for the presidency. We're going to be talking with senior political reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle, Carla Marinucci, who has been covering the 2016 election. And there's just so much that has happened since our last conversation, and who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that Hillary would be where she is, that Donald Trump would be surging, and Joe Biden would be in the mix, let alone Jerry Brown. Carla Marinucci, welcome to the show.
Oh, good to be with you, Tim.
It has been a while since we've spoken, and can you imagine that all of this craziness could have happened in that short time period?
No, but this is this is politics, and not anything can happen in a couple of days, as we're seeing. I mean, the Democratic race looks crazy, and the Republican race is certainly looking crazy. So I'm loving it. That's all I can say. Well,
yeah, from a standpoint of covering it, there's no shortage of fodder. But on a
yeah.
But what does it all mean? I mean, Joe Biden, could Joe Biden seriously be the candidate instead of Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think what we're hearing on the Democratic side, even in California, where Hillary has a lot of followers, a ton of donors. She's got a campaign on the ground. She's had people who have been working for her and ready for Hillary for a long time, like Gavin Newsom and Jennifer Granholm. Some of them are getting a little nervous because of the email issue. They feel like she hasn't handled it well enough. In fact, Roz Wyman, who's a very big Democratic insider, she was quoted today, I think it was in Politico, saying, look, Hillary really needs to get a handle on this. So that kind of sentiment is pumping up the Biden speculation. And I think, Biden, we just saw him here in California. He certainly is, I think, plan B for Democrats if Hillary tanks. But whether she will or not, Tim, I think that's the question. I think, she has so much in place, and she is so formidable when it comes to the money issue, when it comes to women. I just talked to Nancy Pelosi here in San Francisco about Biden, asked her what she thought of him getting in, and she kind of had this pained expression on her face.
Oh, really?
And said, I'm really very excited about the first woman president. So I think that was the answer. And I think the answer from a lot of the Democratic establishment is still going to be, we were with Hillary and we're going to be with her, until the Titanic goes down.
Sure, but that Hillary's not the only woman in the race. We've got a California woman that's run a company. I mean, she's certainly could qualify as the first woman president, right? If she won?
Well, I think, yes, she absolutely would. But I think she has some challenges. Look, they're talking about not even letting her into Carly Fiorina into the next Republican debate at Simi Valley at the Reagan Library. I'm going to be covering that, and I'm going to be very interested to see if Carly Fiorina is not on that stage, because I think she'd make it a much more interesting debate if she is.
I mean, given the California GOP, which you know intimately, you've followed it for years, how brain dead and how tone deaf could they be to block out the one woman who is running on the Republican side when the potential competitor is a woman on the Democrat side? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't think it's up to the California GOP on the debate. It's up to CNN. They're the ones who are going to make the call on who are the. I think they're going to have 10 finalists, just as Fox News did. If that's the case, that's going to be too bad, because Carly, based on some of the old polls, may not make that cut, and I think that would be a bad thing for the Republican Party. It'd be much more interesting to have her on that stage.
I think,
but you're looking at some calculations, Tim, when you're talking about the whole Republican race. Boy, it's just upsetting everything. All the conventional wisdom is going out the window with this race.
Well, I can't say that I don't like it. I'm certainly enjoying watching it from the cheap seats here. But look, I just want to finish up on Carly, because I have this funny theory, and I'd like to get your take on it. She did so well in what they called the loser debate, what I call the VP debate, because when you have two tranches, because the field is so broad, then she is distinguishing herself everywhere I go. When I talk to people, especially business owners and people who would be donors, love her. So I'd say she's the number one pick for a VP by anyone that wants to actually win.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have it right in that she is a dynamic personality, and we know her in the media. Covering her was a lot of fun, because she loved sitting down with the media. She was not afraid of our questions. She was just out there, and I think you're right, in that second debate, she was so strong. The issue is, of course, and it's going to be her record at Hewlett-Packard and the fact that she hasn't been elected to office. And I think that is the interesting thing, isn't it, Tim, about the Republican side? You've got a couple of candidates here, whether it's Donald Trump, Dr. Ben Carson, or Carly Fiorina, who are really outside the Washington establishment. They haven't been elected to anything, but yet they are appealing to voters in a way none of us could have predicted.
Absolutely. And all the action, all the money, all the energy is, I don't mean the money, but I mean the energy and where the people are at the base are with the anti-political sentiment. They hate politicians, and they want somebody to come in like John Wayne and fix it, or Annie Oakley, I guess, would be an example on the other side. But bottom,
yes.
But still, nobody's even talking about Bernie Sanders right now, because Joe Biden's kind of hogging the spotlight. But you still got Bernie Sanders out there, and on the far left, who's immensely popular with some people. Donald Trump is a very, very interesting phenomenon, and I would love to get your take on that, and I'll be glad to share with you what our listeners have been telling us.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Donald Trump, especially since he will be in California for that Simi Valley debate, and we know he's been invited to the Republican State Convention in Anaheim. Whether he's going to accept, but I'm here to say, please, Donald Trump, accept that invitation, because it would make it so much more of an interesting thing, and I don't think it's out of the question that he might not come.
No,
he might come.
He should come. He is one of the most popular candidates in California, and it's so counterintuitive, because as go ahead. I'm sorry. Well, as you know, I've been traveling all over the state. I'm running a statewide referendum on the forced vaccination bill, SB 277. So I'm talking to a broad, diverse group of people. And I was in a church in Oakland with the Nation of Islam. And, I was sitting there. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have anything, I was waiting for the service to start. And then I heard some ladies behind me in the pew, and one of them mentioned Donald Trump. And I turned around and I said, "Oh, do you like Donald Trump?" And she said, "Heck no." And then the other lady, two older ladies, were just waxing eloquent about Donald Trump, which that really surprised me. we've had callers here that are young Hispanic millennials that love Donald Trump, and they don't care what he said. They share some of his sentiments about people who are in the country illegally. They're offended by some of his sentiments, but they think he's the job creator, and they want him, and they don't even like politics. So there's some weird things going on.
You're absolutely right. I think that somebody who comes from outside of Washington, we in the media can talk about, it's all about abortion, or it's all about immigration and all these other issues. But when you get down to it, it may be about, still, the economy's stupid. And if you got a guy who says, look, I know how to create jobs, I've done it, I think people are going to listen to that message. I think attraction with Donald Trump is the guy just says it. He just lets it fly. And people are so fascinated and sick of the politicians who can't seem to say anything without polling it 15 different ways. And I think that's Trump's sort of brilliance. It's also his craziness in some respects. But I have to say, look, when you talk about the California Republican Party convention coming up, it's the biggest media market in the country. It's the biggest Republican Party organization in the country. He'd get a ton of publicity.
You forgot something.
Trump knows how to. What's that?
It's the biggest donor pool.
Oh, of course. That's
so
right. And for money.
Why not fly in and give a speech and walk away with a ton of support? Whether he doesn't need the money, but he needs those donors talking about him to their sphere of influence, because that cannot be discounted. And there's nothing more powerful in a campaign like this than showing up.
Yeah, I think it's a slam dunk for him. And that Friday night slot is open, Donald. You go for it. That's all.
Yeah. Well, they haven't asked me yet, so maybe the Donald can fill it.
Absolutely,
Carla.
That'd be a big deal. We'd love to see it. We'd love to see you there, Tim. I hope we're going to see you there, Tim.
I will be there. I will be covering, not really covering it, but I will certainly be making the rounds and working it. And who would have ever thought that Tim Donnelly, former gubernatorial candidate, would be organizing Democrats all over the state of California? I will be doing that at the Republican convention in defense of this referendum. But that's a fascinating thing all in of itself, because you've got a bunch of Democrats that are mad at their own party. But the question is, can the Republicans seize and pull them into their party? And that question, I think, will be answered this year at the convention.
I think you got it right, and considering that there are now legislative efforts to possibly mandate healthcare workers, workers in daycare centers to be vaccinated, that's, I think, you then take your issue even a little farther. So we'll see how that develops, and I'd love to talk to you about your move to try and speak to Democrats on this one, because this is an explosive issue. It's one of the many that California, I think, is a bit on the forefront with. And what happens in California sometimes starts happening in the rest of the country.
That is right.
We all know it's a trendsetter. So,
that is absolutely right.
That one.
Carla Marinucci, thank you for joining us today. Senior political editor, San Francisco Chronicle, out there somewhere on the Bay Bridge.
Always good to be with you, Tim. Thanks.
Likewise. Hey, we will take a quick break, and we'll be right back with your calls. 323-746-TALK. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. If you were looking for the Tim Donnelly Show, you came to the right place. We're here every day, 3 to 6 p.m., and we stream live at timdonnellyshow.com, where you can also catch up with our podcast on the previous show's link. Had a great conversation with Carla Marinucci, senior political editor, or reporter, at the San Francisco Chronicle. And you remember when she was here before, she didn't think Donald Trump had a chance. And now Donald Trump owns the race.
Well, remember when he first announced?
You're trying to bring back some bad memories?
No, not bad memories. Just, I think a lot of people didn't think that anything was going to happen with Trump and he would drop out like he did before.
Well, I mean, he came out so brusque and so braggadocious, I think is the word I've been looking for a couple of weeks. Okay. I was actually talking about this at lunch today with an individual who really likes Trump, but his advice is he's cool as jets, and take all that energy and that braggadocio kind of it's a facade. Get rid of the facade, relax a little bit, but put the energy into some real proposals that'll get people excited. Because then what happens is you take this broad support right now, what is it, 35%? I mean, it's off the charts. And then you start to put down some roots, because he's in the honeymoon phase right now. They haven't even begun to lay hands on him. And when they do, and I'm not just talking about the Republicans, I'm talking about the Democrats. He's going to need, I wouldn't call it a fallback plan, but he's going to need that connection, that deeper connection than just, hey, that's the guy that's going to go fight the fight. Hey, he's an outsider. I think he can create jobs. We want to see, how are you going to create jobs? What would you do? What would you eliminate? Would you eliminate the IRS? Would you introduce a fair, flat, or some combination of a fair and flat tax, right? Where you do some combination of a consumption tax. Do you realize that, because we've watched the financial markets just go crazy. Well, a big part of that is because so few Americans actually have savings. So we wind up being completely dependent on China. If Americans had savings in the bank, then the American government would be borrowing from Americans in the form of bonds. But instead, we're borrowing from China, who is our economic adversary, who is now a superpower in the world. And Donald Trump's the only one who really seems to understand that. There was an article today, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, that if Donald Trump becomes president, we're going to have a trade war with Mexico and China. Well, I'm okay with that, because I think it'd be nice to have somebody who would stand up for the American worker, somebody who would stand up for our veterans who are coming back and looking for a job. They want a good job. They want a career. They want something to do, not just, hey, work for minimum wage, even if it's $15 an hour, because that there's no future. You know what's coming, right? An army of robots to replace the zombies who are working in the minimum wage jobs now. Why would you want to put up with all of the attitude and all of the arrogance of people who take to the streets to demand that you pay them more when they can't deliver more value? If you can deliver more value, then you go out on the street or in the marketplace and you trade up. You get a better job. You take that skill set. We're going to have to leave it right there. Hey, inspirational story. I know you're in there. Is there life after autism? Stay tuned. Hey, you are listening to The Tim Donnelly Show, broadcast 3 to 6 p.m. on the Radio Free California Network. And we have a special guest on the Radio Free California Newsmaker line, Marcia Hines. She is a credentialed teacher. She has degrees from UCLA in sociology and psychology. But Marcia's most impressive credential for writing the book that we're about to discuss, I Know You're in There, is that she's Ryan's mom. And the experts told her an institution was in Ryan's future, but she proved them wrong. Ryan is now an engineer at a major aerospace company, and the story begs the question. Is there life after autism, especially in light of everything that's going on in this country when we know that Congress is soon going to be holding hearings and we're going to find out what they knew and when they knew it in terms of the link between mercury and mercury-based preservatives and autism. But right now, we're going to talk about Ryan's story. Marcia Hines, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure and our honor. And what an incredible story. I mean, they told you institutions that he would never recover, and yet he's now an engineer at a major aerospace company. What happened?
Well, actually in the beginning, even I didn't believe Ryan could get better because he was just so weird. And most of the things that I did was so I could tell myself that if I ever had to put him in an institution or a group home, that I had done everything I could to help him. And
so take us to the beginning. What happened? I mean, when did you first know he was autistic?
Well, it was weird because we didn't know. The first part is being in denial. You try and think it's anything else. You want to pretend. You can tell these kids are brilliant and they're smart, but they're just strange. And, when you see them doing repetitive behaviors and screaming instead of crying and having these intense emotions, he made strange noises. He sometimes seemed silly and almost drunk. For him, he loved to spend his days going from outlet to outlet, plugging in this stupid little portable radio over and over again. And he'd go from room to room, turning off and on the lights and the faucets, because that was what he wanted to do.
How old was he at that time?
He was probably, it kind of started I think it sort of started when he first came home from the hospital, because my husband and I disagree on this. Because I remember holding him and giving him a bottle, and he wouldn't look at me. And that's kind of another big sign, is they don't have good eye contact.
Interesting.
They get very, in addition to the other symptoms, they crave sameness. They want it to be the same all the time. So every day we had to have lunch between the hours of 12 and 1. And if it wasn't served between the hours of 12 and 1, he wouldn't eat. And that meant I was kind of in for an afternoon of meltdowns, because when he was hungry, he was worse than before. So sometimes if we were late, I'd kind of be in a panic because I didn't want to have the consequences that would happen, and I'd run into the house real quick and set the clock back. So that
how did that go?
Everything's fair when you're dealing with a kid with autism.
How did it work? Did it work?
Okay. It did work.
Interesting.
And,
so he didn't have some internal clock that he could call you out on.
No, he was. When you hear the word autism, parents are terrified and they hope that the doctor's wrong. And there's so many things that you wish someone had told you about when your kid was first diagnosed. There's so much information out there, but nobody agrees on anything, so it's very confusing and very hard. And things that, most doctors don't think it can be treated, and that's the real problem.
Well, it must have felt hopeless when you come home and tell me, because I don't know, but I've been spending a lot of time with parents who have had vaccine injured children, who've had children who are autistic, and a whole lot of other things.
And by the way, thank you for your effort with SB 277, because no matter what side of the vaccine thing you're on, that's just a bad law. You don't want the government telling parents and doctors if a kid has to be vaccinated.
Yeah, it's a horrible law.
It is.
And the bottom line is that parents are the ones who are going to live with the consequences. So parents are the ones who should be making these choices on behalf of their children, and the state is trying to take that away from them. But here's my question.
Okay.
You're a mom. You bring your son home from the hospital, and when you said that he looked away from you, that's not just about eye contact. That's about an emotional connection as well. I mean, did you have an emotional connection with him? I mean, how did that work out with his?
I did. I think when you take care of a child, that's the thing that makes you love them, no matter how awful they are. Our kids drive us absolutely insane, but we would do anything for them, when they're little. And I think the hardest part to deal with this diagnosis is to live with the fear that you have for the kids' futures. Is my kid going to end up in a group home? Will he ever be able to live independently? Who's going to take care of him after I'm gone and I can no longer do it? That's the hardest part of the diagnosis, and the thing that every parent is afraid of. And I'm okay now because I know mine is good. As a matter of fact, he's up in Seattle right now on a business trip and loves to call me and tell me how the company is paying for this and that and this, because he's kind of a cheapskate, let me tell you.
Oh, I see. Where did he get that from, mom or dad?
Well, I'm not cheap. I'm just thrifty.
Ah, he got it from mom.
Yes, I know how to get a deal. Let's put it that way.
Well, if you are just tuning in, we're talking to Marcia Hines, the author of I Know You're In There, Winning Our War Against Autism. And Marcia, this is this story, I think, probably scares a lot of people that maybe they don't even want to hear it because they're terrified of what could potentially happen to their child. And yet you've got this amazing story of what your family went through. Where did it begin where you realized that you were going to do something and try to see a future or make a future for Ryan?
Well, I think we always worked with Ryan, even before we knew he had autism, because surprisingly, my husband and I worked under Ivar Lovas as undergraduates at UCLA with kids with autism. And we didn't know he had autism because the kids that we worked with had no speech at all. And Ryan had a few words. He didn't have any conversational speech, and the speech that he used was mostly to get things he wanted or things that were his restricted interests that had something to do with, they'd have to have something to do with plugs or sharks or technology or elevators or, all the things that he loved that were very strange, but he loved them. And I always tell parents, you have to use those things to that's what makes your kids want to learn. You use those things to teach them. And that was the best piece of advice I was ever given. Use what they love to teach them. It works on husbands, too, just so you know.
Hey, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and get more tips on how your family made this amazing recovery. 323-746-TALK if you want to ask any questions coming up after the break. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. If you are just tuning in, we are talking with Marcia Hines, the mother of Ryan, and the story of triumph. Is there life after autism? Is there a possibility of recovery? All the experts said no, but Marcia, Ryan's mom, refused to give up. Marcia,
Yes.
talk to us about what specifics you did that wound up altering Ryan's course from group home to owning a home and having a job and all the things that go along with the dreams that a parent has for a child.
Well, I think part of the reason more kids don't get better is because some people do, the ABA kind of treatment, which is the behavioral and educational treatment, and they do that alone, and other people do the medical treatment and don't do the ABA treatment. Autism is medical and treatable. That's the good news. An autism diagnosis no longer has to mean game over. The bad news is that most physicians don't know it's treatable, and it's very difficult to find a doctor who knows what to do. So if you walk into your pediatrician's office and say, hey, I want some medical treatment for autism, they're going to look at you like you're a little crazy. And, I traveled the country, and fortunately my husband was an airline pilot, so I could, because it was affordable. And I went from doctor to doctor to doctor looking for answers. And the really sad part is I usually knew more about autism than they did.
Wow.
Because I had read so much. But you have to remember, back then, there was no internet. There was nothing. There were no support groups. We were on our own, and we were far away from family in Minnesota. Our family was in California. And, we were isolated on what I call Autism Island, where there was no hope. There was, we went into the psychiatrist's office. When we finally realized something was wrong, it was when Ryan's preschool teacher called us in for a conference. And this was a woman who'd been my daughter's preschool teacher as well. And I trusted her. I had known her for a lot of years. And she held my hand, and her eyes kind of misted up. And she said, Marcia, I have to tell you something really awful. There's something wrong with your kid. And, I don't even know how to explain the punch in the stomach you feel when somebody says that, because you're trying everything you can not to see it. You want it to be anything else. And she said, he doesn't interact with other kids. He doesn't play with toys. He makes strange noises. And when he does play with toys, he lines them up in perfect rows. This isn't normal. And so that was my signal that I had to go to the doctor and make him do something. And I had asked the pediatrician many times before what was wrong with Ryan. And he actually helped me with my denial because he said, he's a boy and he's different than your daughter who came first. Boys are later to speak and, they're a little more active, and that's the problem. And I so wanted to believe that, so I did. And it actually caused us to waste a lot of time that we could have been working. So
when did you find a doctor that was able to actually treat Ryan?
Well, the hard part is that autism is not just one thing. It's a bunch of things combined. And you have to almost treat every condition separately. And you know how difficult that is? And to actually find a doctor who can help you with each of those conditions, sometimes it takes more than one doctor. My first clue was I got something, I don't know, from the Autism Research Institute that caused me to question everything I knew about autism. And I called them up for a little clarification. And the phone was answered by Bernie Rimland himself, who back then I didn't know who he was, so I wasn't really impressed. I should have been, because Bernie Rimland started the Autism Research Institute, and he knew about every medical treatment, proven and unproven, that had occurred. And the reason he did was because his son had autism. And so he had that instant connection that comes from finding the same enemy and the same war.
So give me an example of a couple of things that you can do. What are some treatments that were effective?
Well, the first thing he told me to do was, he said, does Ryan drink a lot of milk? And I said, well, yeah, kind of, and he eats cheese and all that kind of stuff. And he said, well, try taking him off dairy for a week and then give him a glass of milk and see what happens. And I thought, this man's a little crazy. I said, but he was really nice and I was really desperate. And so I tried what he said.
What happened?
And all of a sudden, Ryan, his noises were less. He used to pinch and bite his sister until she cried. That lessened the weird behavior.
I don't think that's exclusive to autism, though. That's boys and girls.
Well, but this was different because he would go up to her and just squeeze her and pinch her. And, it's kind of funny because she used to ask me, she'd say, Mom, can I hit him back? And I'd say, once he's better, you can hit him. And it's kind of still a joke between them today because whenever he pisses her off, she hauls off and slugs him, and then they both laugh.
That's great. All right, so after he was off the milk and the cheese and the dairy for a week, so
I never gave him that glass of milk. But I never did because the change was so phenomenal.
Wow.
And that was my first indication that, this is a changeable condition. This is medical and it's treatable. And what happens is these kids have an immune system that's not working right. Sometimes it's overactive, sometimes it's underactive, sometimes it's not working at all. Sometimes these kids never get sick because their systems are overactive. And if you can take some of the stress off their immune system, they can get better and they can start learning. And it's not an immediate thing. It's very slow and very gradual. As a matter of fact, some parents think that, once you start treating it medically, if their kids don't start speaking in full sentences, the medical treatment's not working. But that's not true. Think about how kids are it takes normal kids at least 3 years to gain language. So if you could wave a magic wand and make their bodies all better, they still wouldn't be normal. You still have to catch them up on what they missed.
So you've got to be really patient.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I was that patient. I can tell you about one time when he tried to jump from a moving car, and he scared the bejesus out of me. And what happened was he never wanted anything to change. So he was at a friend's house, and of course he didn't want to go when it was time to go there, and when it was time to leave, he didn't want to leave. So I put him in the car, and I put him in his seatbelt, and we were driving down the road doing about 30 when I heard the click of the seatbelt. And I turned around to see him standing in front of the open van door. That was before we had safety locks and everything else. And he was standing there ready to jump out to go back to his friend's house. And I did one of those big reaches across the car, and I grabbed his jacket, and I pulled the car over. And then I won't tell you what I did, because it wasn't what mothers are supposed to do, because he scared me so much. And he did, he had no apparent fear of death. He did stuff like that all the time. And, they say some of these moms who have kids with autism almost are suffering from PTSD, because we're constantly scared that we're not going to see something and they're going to do something.
Wow. So I think a lot of parents are listening to you and thinking, but for the grace of God, go I. But
well, that's
can I hold you over for one more segment, because I want to get to the conclusion of how and exactly what changed the course of his behavior and his reaction to a condition that for many people is a lifelong debilitating condition. That
it is, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, for some kids, their immune systems are too screwed up to fix, but it doesn't have to mean game over. And that's why I hope people will get my book, because first of all, I am not taking any profits from this book. Everything that profit from the book goes back into spreading the word that autism is treatable.
Okay. We're talking to Marcia Hines, and we've got the book up on TimDonnellyShow.com. We'll be right back with more.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
We are talking with Marcia Hines, who is the author of I'm trying to find the book title here. Are You Still In There? It's up at TimDonnellyShow.com. I Know You're In There. Winning Our War Against Autism. Most people think game, set, match, it's over. Marcia, you proved otherwise, and you wrote a book about it. So tell us the secret. What happened?
I think the secret is to have a multi-prong approach to autism. You have to treat it medically. That makes it so your kid is able to learn. And then you have to do the behavioral and the educational part at the same time, because that catches them up on everything they missed. I had to teach Ryan how to do everything. When he was little, he didn't know how to cry. He used to scream. I had to teach him how to cry. He didn't know how to smile for a picture. When I said smile, he'd make kind of like a little choir boy.
Yeah.
And
how do you teach that, though?
Well, you just kind of, you show them, you make them do things, you make them laugh, and you say, that's smiling, a natural smile. But when you say smile, he couldn't do it. And, the first clue, Dr. Rimlin then sent us to Dr. Baker, who was in Connecticut, who was the one who started the DAN protocol, which is Defeat Autism Now, which now is called MAPS. And Dr. Baker put Ryan on a restricted diet, an antifungal medication to treat the overgrowth of yeast in Ryan's guts, and lots of supplements. The good news was Ryan was more verbal. He had fewer meltdowns and less strange behavior. The bad news was it was expensive. There were too many supplements, and since Ryan hadn't learned how to swallow pills yet, it was almost impossible to get my 4-year-old to take them all. And Ryan kept losing weight, and he was too skinny to begin with. And eventually we stopped seeing Dr. Baker. I was about ready to give up when I read a letter by a mom in the Autism Society of America magazine called The Advocate. And she was talking about her doctor in California who thought that autism is not really autism, but kids who have immune systems that are sometimes overactive and other times don't work at all. And once the stress on her son's immune system was reduced, he spoke his first words. And this was accomplished after a few months of treatment by eliminating foods that caused an immune reaction, iron supplements, and the use of antifungals and antiviral medication. Now, people who have immune issues, like people with AIDS and everything else, have an overgrowth of candida in their stomach, or yeast, it's called. And that can be treated with antifungal and antiviral medication. And, the silliness and the goofiness and the laughing and the strange behaviors and the weird noises start to go away once that medication starts to take hold. The hard part is that even the doctors who treat this don't realize that sometimes our kids, they put these kids on these medications for a month or two and think that's it. And it doesn't work that way. Ryan he still is on medications to treat, he's still on antifungals and antivirals and an iron supplement, and has been ever since he was about 4. And, when one stops working, because they do, because the kids build up a tolerance to a certain medication, you have to switch to another one. So that's what even the doctors who treat this sometimes don't get.
Well, your perseverance and your attitude of never giving up on your son, is extraordinary. You chronicled it in a book. We have it up at timdonnellyshow.com. I know you're in there, Winning Our War Against Autism, and you chronicle this entire journey that your family took, because your son, Ryan, is now on a business trip in Seattle. He works for a major aerospace company, and in every way, he's
living the life that every parent hopes for their kid. He has friends. He, he does so many things. He's involved in politics. As a matter of fact, when I told him I was going to be on your show, he was so excited. And he doesn't normally do interviews or anything, but he was thinking about it because it was you.
Well, I am honored to have to have him feel that way. And look,
he's a libertarian. And, he so appreciates all that you do.
Well, I am a very liberty-minded individual because I believe it's just our duty as Americans to defend our freedom. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. But
I think you're absolutely right.
But I hope one day to be able to meet him, because this story is inspirational. There's so many people whose lives, as you described, have been devastated by autism and other neurological conditions that strike our children. And
I don't think it's just autism. I think all these things like schizophrenia and bipolar are all medical. And if you can fix what's not working in the body or the immune system, you can fix the blood flow in the brain. And, when we first started, we gave up with Dr. Baker because it just was too hard, and he was so far away. And Ryan, to try and get this kid to take a pill or something, it was crazy. So our next stop was California. And I had read this article by another mom who said that this miracle doctor in California, her kid said his first words after this doctor treated him with antifungal and antiviral medications. And when we went to California, and I'm not sure we would have gone if we weren't going back to see family anyway for Thanksgiving, because we were kind of over traveling from doctor to doctor to doctor. And we went to see Dr. Michael Goldberg in Tarzana. And Dr. Goldberg refused to call it autism. He even coined his own term for it.
What do you call it?
NIDS, Neuroimmune Dysfunction Syndrome. He thought that our kids actually have an immune problem that looks like autism, because autism is just a collection of symptoms that look different in every kid. So that sounded great to us, because every parent hopes that their child might have something else, and it only gets better when that something else is treatable. So Dr. Goldberg sent us to get something called a neurospec. Now, at the time, that was very experimental and was only in
sounds really expensive.
Well, it's kind of like a functional MRI now, and it showed that the inflammation in Ryan's brain caused decreased blood flow to certain areas. And the doctor who read the scan had never met my son, yet he wrote in the report, autism, ? Now, how could he see my son's autism if this was a developmental or psychiatric condition? He couldn't have done it. So we have to change the thinking out there. We have to change the mindset and the paradigm. And the way to do it is with the doctors. And so any doctor who shows any interest at all in learning about this, I send them a free book. And I just had a doctor call me yesterday on the phone, and he said, I have to tell you, this is the best book I have ever read on autism, and I want to fly out there and meet you. He was from Arizona. And then I found out that his daughter also lives out here. So it wasn't like he was flying out to meet me. There was another reason for him to come. But I was kind of flattered that he said that, because my mommies all tell me, you wrote everything that I felt, and you explained it to me in a way that I could understand how to help my child. And that's what this book is all about. And it's, to be honest, I really want to retire. I mean, my kid's better. I don't have to do anything anymore. But I can't, because I talk to these moms all day long, and I cry with them. And some of them are just, the stories are so sad because it splits up families. The stress is not only about the kid, it's on the rest of the family. And marriages are broken up. My husband and I almost didn't make it because it was so difficult. And we fought all the time about Ryan. And, I've learned a thing or two. I probably would have used a little ABA on him if I would have been smarter at the time. And
wouldn't we all?
Well, you have to give men what they love, and what do men love? Okay,
food
and good food. Let's go, sex and respect. Those are the three things they need. And
not necessarily in that order, by the way.
No, not in that order. But if you give those things, there's going to be a lot less arguing.
Yeah, Men are very simple creatures. Look,
they are. They're not like us.
Marcia, your book, I know you're in there. You can get it at iknowyou'reinThere.com.
And we're on Amazon.
You're on Amazon. You're up at timdonnellyshow.com. And look,
I'm on iTunes and Kobo and Smashwords. And if you go on Amazon, you can read the first 4 chapters and see if this is something that's going to help you before you purchase it.
I think there are very likely many people in the audience who are going to want to buy your book. And you were starting to say where the proceeds go. I wanted to let you say that before we let you go.
Everything that I make on the book goes back into promoting that autism is treatable. We need to make this common knowledge so parents know that they have to try and they have to keep fighting to help their kids. Because whenever I used to ask somebody if any of these kids got better, all I got was silence, And that's why I kind of worried about putting Ryan out there. As a matter of fact, poor Ryan is on the cover of a magazine called the Autism Eye, and I happened to be at Autism One speaking, and these people were trying to get a hold of me, to ask me about the cover, and they couldn't get a hold of me, so they went without it. And, Ryan's a little picky about, having his face out there, even though if you read the foreword to my book, he's so wonderful because he said, I don't want everybody to know every detail of my life, but I know how important it is because some parents are told their kids will never get better, and that can't happen. We have to change that.
Absolutely. Marcia Hines, Changing the Face of Autism. I know you're in there.com. That's where you can get the book. It's on Amazon. Thank you for coming on and sharing Ryan's story today.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thanks for SB 277. Keep up the good work. We're all with you.
Well, I'm doing the referendum to overturn it. I am not responsible for that law.
Well, I know you're doing the referendum to overturn it. That's what we need.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will be right back with your calls. 323-746-TALK. Stay tuned. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. You are listening to the Tim Donnelly Show. We broadcast live 3 to 6 p.m. on the Radio Free California Network. And you can catch us at timdonnellyshow.com. Connect with us, Facebook, Twitter, email, and the good old-fashioned Alexander Graham Bell invention, which doesn't look anything like it. It's now a smartphone instead of a Bell phone. 323-746-TALK if you want to talk about the issues of the day. We are going to have an interesting story coming up in the 5 o'clock hour about the Border Patrol and a boat. And you will not believe what happened. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because you're going to have to listen to find out the rest of the story. Talking about boats, or somebody mentioned the Titanic. Maybe that wasn't.
Oh, was it Carla Marinucci talking about supporters for Hillary?
Yes. It's talking about the Titanic. I mean, they're rearranging the deck chairs. And it's rather fascinating because Martin O'Malley, governor of Maryland, former governor of Maryland, took his hardest punch at Hillary. You don't usually see Democrats attacking Democrats. It's not allowed. Saying the party shouldn't be circling the wagons around the former Secretary of State, and began questioning her viability against Republicans. Until we start having debates, our party's going to be defined and branded by questions like, what did Secretary Clinton know, and when did she know it? And when will the FBI conclude the investigation? That's not a formula for success in the fall. And he said, I think it's a big mistake for us as a party to circle the wagons around the quote-unquote inevitable frontrunner. I don't think it's inevitable. It certainly is in question given the I believe it's the first time she's ever even admitted that she made a mistake. I don't know if you saw that. It was in the New York Times yesterday. And just a little food for thought. As I was reading this New York Times article, I was a little shocked when I got to the end of the article, because in the very last paragraph, and most people never read past the headline and maybe the first paragraph. In the very last paragraph, it said that the FBI had done a sampling, and a sampling of the first 40 emails produced 4 classified. That's 10%. That's really shocking, given that she has downplayed this and tried to make it sound as if it was all about nothing. Much ado about nothing. It's a right-wing conspiracy. And yet, who's attacking her? But it's always the left wing. It's her own party. It's Obama. It's Obama's Justice Department. It's Obama's FBI. It's Obama's intelligence community. So then she's stuck with, well, if everybody's against you, maybe you did something wrong. I don't know. Does that seem crazy? It certainly, I think we're going to see a Joe Biden. I don't think we're going to get Jerry Brown. I don't think he's even going to run. And it's kind of too bad, because I think it would be a lot of fun to have Jerry Brown in the race. You know, maybe we could promote that idea. If you like the idea of Jerry Brown running for president, leaving California alone and trying to screw up the country, give us a call, 323-746-TALK. But you've got to be able to make a good case for why you want Jerry Brown to run for president, because you very may well be the only one. Michelle Moons coming up right after this break, talking about the Border Patrol being sued by illegal aliens.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Early on the morning of June 18th, agents with the Border Patrol spotted what appeared to be a smuggling boat carrying approximately 20 passengers off the coast of Encinitas, California. According to the agency, agents made multiple attempts to hail the pilot of the vessel, but the boat failed to yield. Given the failure to yield, agents fired 2 warning shots. The vessel's pilot did not yield. Then the boats collided. The smuggling vessel then capsized, dumping the 20 individuals into the water. Agents pulled everyone out of the water and began administering CPR to one unresponsive woman who was later flown to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead. And now there's a lawsuit. Relatives of the woman, Graciela Lopez Franco of the Mexican state of Jalisco, are suing the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. I didn't even know you could do that, but we're going to bring on Michelle Moons, Breitbart investigative journalist. Michelle, tell us it ain't so.
Oh, it's so. The lawsuit is, yes, against these agents that were involved, and
how can these agents be sued? I mean, don't they have some sort of immunity in the course of doing their...
You sure would think so, wouldn't you? That's in the course of their duties to do exactly what they were supposed to do and try and stop this vessel that's bringing in 20 illegal... Well, they believe that they were all illegal aliens. That hasn't been specifically detailed, other than this particular woman and others. But yeah, you would think that in the course of doing their duties, that they would be covered for situations where this wasn't even their well, it's being alleged that it was an aggressive action by them, by this lawyer. And what you're seeing now is over and over, there are these cases.
But that is that's their job, though, to be aggressive and defend the border.
Yes, defend the border. Well, see, if our current administration actually wanted to defend the border, maybe we wouldn't have quite as many of these problems, but they're not that interested in that. So we have lawsuits like this, and it's being undertaken by the family of the woman that is now deceased. And what happened is she got caught under the boat. It's kind of, there are conflicting reports, but basically when everybody got dumped overboard from the boat, that and mind you, it was the collision. It's not that they tried to dump the boat, just the boat capsized. They're generally small boats and generally way overpacked with the people that they're trying to get across. And what is detailed out, for one, is that the individual running what he says he was dealing with the fuel on the boat. The fee for him was $10,000, which I'm told by agents is pretty typical. And so if there was the one smuggler on the boat, he's making
that's a major bank.
The fee total would be around $190,000. So that's what you're looking at. And he got a discount this is what he says is this fuel guy says he got a $4,000 discount on the crossing. But it's very dangerous. They go way out in the waters. And so there could be boats that we don't even know get capsized way out in international waters, never to be seen again. This is not the Border Patrol putting these people in danger. It's the smugglers and themselves.
Yeah, and the idea that you can sue agents of Customs, Border Patrol, the fact you can sue the U.S. government, the fact you can sue anybody when you're the one breaking the law is, I think, probably disconcerting to most Americans.
Well, this is America, so we hear these crazy cases like the person that breaks into someone's home and then falls on a knife and sues the homeowner. You hear these sorts of cases, and they sound crazy, but they do happen. Now, the hope is that if assuming that they determine that these individuals were not responsible, that these agents were not responsible, which they will determine in the course of court proceedings whether or not that's the case, and that they would then be vindicated. But they have to go through this process because of this lawsuit being undertaken by the family of this woman. There have been other cases.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it just me, or is there a spike in cases where you've got lawyers that are literally? It's almost like they're being put up to this by somebody who has a pool of money to throw whatever they can at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, it's pushing it's pushing for these individuals that are not legally in the country, and you see it again and again. So I was here when I went up to LA when Luis Gutierrez was doing his immigration national tour to tell people how to get legalized under DAPA and DACA, and they had just a ton of lawyers. They again and again, all of these events that they put up, they bring in tons of lawyers to come in and advocate for these people. It's no mistake that you're seeing them. There are they call them like immigrant rights or advocates, but it's illegal immigrants is typically the case. And you see a case in Texas where there's a rancher out there. We reported on it back last year. Tony Lee reported for Breitbart on a rancher in Texas that constantly has people come through his ranch. And they have these huge ranches out in Texas, right? They will find illegal immigrants that have been brought out there by their smugglers or sent out there by their smugglers to avoid a checkpoint. And they cause damage, or they maybe die out on the property. And there's a case where a family was suing a rancher because their family member, their family member that was illegally coming into the country and trying to evade being caught, died on a rancher's property, and then the family's suing the rancher.
But how can that even make it into a court of law? I don't understand how there could be any standing.
Question.
How do you have standing when you're illegally present? How do you have standing when somebody's private property you have invaded, you have violated, and they did not do anything aggressive to you? It's not like they shot you dead.
No, and that's exactly it. I mean, even especially with the rancher, you look at it and you go, he didn't do anything. In fact, there's one from that story where one of the ranchers out there that spends $20,000 a year repairing damage done, because they'll come and from myself being down in Texas, they'll ram gates and things that these ranchers have to fix constantly. So then you look at down here in San Diego, and you've got these agents are just trying to do their job, and they're being put in a situation where, I mean, are they going to hesitate doing their job now because they're afraid that they're going to get sued? Hopefully not. But you look at the Black Lives Matter movement that's gone against police, and there was a policeman not that long ago that hesitated because of that very reason, and he got attacked. So now are we going to have Border Patrol agents not wanting to, or be hesitating to do their job? Well, I can tell you, I've talked to them. I've talked to many of them, and yes, for many reasons, they may hesitate to take certain actions at times. You look at when they get hit with rocks down at the border. Now, these rocks are not little pebbles. They get even up to basketball-sized rocks thrown at their heads, and then you have some lawsuit because what they shot back. They were being attacked with rocks, and then they get sued because they shot back to defend themselves. It happens again and again. In fact, I've had Border Patrol agents tell me they were facing what the police are facing before the police faced the Black Lives Matter movement. They've been facing it for years, that they get attacked by illegal immigrants. It's nothing new, and then they'll get sued over it.
It's sharks in the water. I mean, the danger here is you might be minding your own business, but if you happen to stumble, or somebody stumbles on your property, or somebody falls overboard out of a boat, even though, I mean, the Customs and Border Protection was doing what they're trained to do. They were doing what they're charged to do.
Steps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do things like they ran their sirens. They make multiple attempts to get this boat to stop, and that's
they even fired warning shots.
And then they fired it's a flare type warning shot to let this vessel know. But of course, it's a smuggler. They don't want to be caught. They're going to keep going and try to evade being caught. And so you get these situations where they don't care. These smugglers don't care about the people that they're smuggling. They want to get their money, and they want to go back and smuggle more people in. I mean, one boat, and he's looking at making $190,000, which arguably then minus the so almost $190,000 on one boat. And then
I'm sorry, but I want to know where they get $10,000 each to come into a country when they're so poor. How
That's very good question.
Did somebody buy them and bring them in as indentured servants to work in the field, or in a hotel, or in a restaurant, or some other industry where they can work as essential indentured servants and modern day slaves? I mean, this is insanity.
There are many different situations when it comes to people that come across the border, based on Border Patrol conversations I've had with Border Patrol agents. So a lot of the time, you'll see where, so if they do have a family member in the U.S., maybe that person is sending money back to Mexico for them to get through. Fine. But it is a lot of money, $10,000, even if you're working up in the U.S. So you do have cases where then people are indentured to their smugglers. Or there was a story that an agent told me about a young man who had been helping smugglers down in Texas. And what he did was he assisted them, brought people across the border every day, and he got into it because he came to cross the border and then got tied in with these smugglers, and then he's smuggling people across because all of a sudden he's making money doing it. Again and again,
Wow.
I can't tell you how many stories there are.
Only in California could you sue the Border Patrol for doing its job while you're breaking into the country. Michelle Moons, Breitbart columnist, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for breaking this story. We will be right back after these messages. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clays. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Lawsuits, lawyers, taxes, fees,
Fleas.
fleas biting you and giving you plague, crumbling freeways, no damn dams. It makes you understand why so many people are leaving California. But do you think Jerry Brown might leave and head for Washington, D.C.? We're going to go to the phones. We've got John from North Carolina. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you're getting tired of hearing from me, but I can't help myself.
No, we kind of like you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Jerry Brown needs to go.
So you want him in Washington, D.C. Maybe we could get him to run for governor of North Carolina.
No, absolutely not. I like my governor. They need to ship him towards and keep on keeping on past Hawaii and go all the way around. But I tell you what, I think there's something morally and ethically wrong with this country, the way these people think. I've asked you before, what makes these people tick? What makes these people think? What makes them think they need bigger government? That's not what the government was initially designed for.
Well, I don't think they sit down and think about it. It is much more. It's sort of like the cheese is being held out, and that's always money. It's always money. It's jobs. It's power. It's things that seduce people into behaviors that are not consistent at all with the Constitution. They could care less about the Constitution. They don't sit around smoking cigars and talking about the Constitution.
No, they sit around smoking cigars thinking how they can destroy the country, the way I take it.
Well, I think they think they're saving the country, but all they're doing...
They don't realize... Yeah, exactly.
They're just serving themselves.
Yep.
And that's the bottom line. And, but I don't think the rest of the country would accept the insanity of Moonbeam Jerry Brown the way Californians do. I just don't see it.
No. Well, I just think we're starting to look very weak. We're starting to look like a joke. When somebody can come on our soil, not even a citizen, not even trying to attempt to be a citizen the right way, and they think they can sue us and have the possibility of getting away with it, that's.
Oh, not just getting away with it, getting paid some bank. We're going to keep an eye on that story, I'll tell you that, especially in light. Look, Donald Trump is the one who started it. He's the one who put the spotlight on it. And then you, of course, had the tragic death of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco. And now there's stories all over the country. And I think most Americans are sick and tired of their stupid, worthless politicians who serve themselves, who pander to some mythical Hispanic vote instead of respecting Americans who happen to have Hispanic surnames, but they're Americans. And but they're not, they don't care about the people who are trying to come here. They could care less.
Yep.
They only care about themselves and their political future and their grip on power. And that's what's driving this behavior and this tolerance of this undermining of our rule of law. John, thanks for the call. And keep listening.
Not you and I, but I think the country's turned into a bunch of, dare I say, wussies. But I say put a bunch of gun owners down on the border, and that rancher probably won't have a problem with having the legal gun owners, and then pay them to do the job, and take the money from Planned Parenthood and pay these guys to man the border to build the wall.
John, I think you need to reach out to Donald Trump and see if he'll pick up your idea. Hey, we're gonna be taking a break here in a minute, but look, I think Donald Trump does need to come up with some more substantive ideas. And hey, you want to defund one segment of government and do the job correctly in another? There's nothing wrong with that. It's common sense. We're America. We're Americans. We get things done. I think that is part of Trump's appeal, is that he just comes across as, I can get stuff done. And nobody else really gives you that confidence that they would be able to deliver. They can talk, they can promise, they can read from white papers, but they can't think on their feet and speak from their heart. We will be right back after a short break.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Yeah, if you stick around California too long, you just might lose control. It's hard to believe that we reelected Jerry Brown, and he is being urged by LA Times columnist George Skelton to run for president based on the strength of what he's done in California. I'm just curious. Any Jerry Brown takers out there? 323-746-TALK. If you think Jerry Brown would make a great president, we'd love to hear from you. No takers in North Carolina, by the way. John from North Carolina called and said, no, they don't want him there. I don't think most of the rest of the country would put up with him. What do you think? Give us a call, 323-746-8255. Meanwhile, a new poll, I don't even know how to say this word, according to a Quinnipiac. Oh, you're not even going to try, are you? No. Yeah. When you shake your head and say no, no one can hear you. University poll released Thursday. I guess they were already ready for the Biden. If Biden was the Democrat candidate, they're claiming he would beat Donald Trump by 8 points. Beat former Governor Jeb Bush by 6 points. And beat Senator Marco Rubio by 3 points. Well, right there. As soon as you hear he would only beat Senator Marco Rubio by 3 points, that ought to tell you that all they did is poll Democrats or poll a very, very liberal and skewed segment of the population. Because Marco Rubio is dead on arrival with most Republicans. He could never even be the nominee because he favors amnesty. He was part of the Gang of Eight that were ganging up on the American people to basically let in another 20, 30 million illegals with another amnesty, because that's what happens. And one of the assistant directors of the poll said, note to Biden, they like you. They really like you. Or at least they'll like you more than the others. If he's sitting on the fence, his scores in the matchups and his favorability ratings may compel him to say, let's do this. I don't know. There's a lot in flux, and it's certainly not. I just don't think Joe Biden's that likable. Do you remember him from the debates? Do you remember who was it? It was the last presidential race with what's that? The guy with hair, Mitt Romney, and he picked that Paul Ryan, and so Paul Ryan from Wisconsin had to go up against Joe Biden, and Joe Biden essentially took him to town the way that Jerry Brown took Meg Whitman to town. Just came from the street, shot from the hip, was rude, was irreverent, was funny, but was a pit bull. And Ryan was being the nice politician, saying all the, but he didn't show any command. He couldn't control the guy. He couldn't defend his own space on stage. But Biden's one of those guys. I mean, I hope he's the candidate, because if you had Donald Trump up against Joe Biden, you've got a match made in heaven, because Trump loves to push people's buttons, right? We know that. I mean, he's pushing too many buttons. He needs. Most people think he needs to cool it with Megyn Kelly, but if he's pushing Joe Biden, it doesn't take much. That guy will go off the deep end. He'll go out over the edge and make a fool of himself, and then Trump would just get out of his way. I'm trying to decide if I'd rather have Jerry Brown or Joe Biden. Well, I guess the people will decide. I don't think it's going to be Martin O'Malley, because he's just too boring. And he doesn't really know how to strike. But there's another possibility. What if Hillary doesn't get out? Do you think Joe Biden comes in? Does he ride in and go after her and take her out? Because something's got to happen. They can't have a wounded candidate. It's kind of like a wounded deer or elk or whatever in the herd. The wolves are coming.
Well, as somebody that is not too politically involved, I didn't even know anything about Joe Biden, for this election until all this stuff with Hillary came out. And then all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, wait, what about Joe Biden?
Well, and Joe, obviously when you're the vice president, people know your name to some extent. Most millennials don't know your name because they just don't know your name. But when his son died, his son recently passed away tragically at a very young age. He was everywhere. And, of course, everybody in the country was sending him well wishes and, their condolences. And Joe Biden is one, in my opinion, is one of the most unlikable, cantankerous, rude, off-color. There's a lot of things about him not to like. But when his son died, everybody sort of came together around him. So there is sort of a glow about Biden right now. And that's important. I mean, you look at this poll, his unlikability or his unfavorable ratings are much lower, and his favorability ratings are much higher than Hillary. And Hillary's dropping like a stone. People just don't like her. It's one thing to have issues. It's another thing to have issues and be unlikable. You don't get to be corrupt and have everybody question your integrity and be unlikable. Now, you can be corrupt and have everybody question your integrity as long as they want to have a beer with you. They'll still vote for you. I'm sorry, but this is the state of politics in America, and that isn't going to change anytime soon. I just don't see Joe being able to hold it together. All they're going to have to do is push one or two buttons, and he's finished. But in terms of Joe Biden up against Donald Trump, there is no way on planet Earth. I want to know. I want to see these numbers. I want to dig into their poll, and they never show you all the crosstabs because they don't really want you to know. I want to know who the heck thinks that Joe Biden makes a better president than Donald Trump. And there would have to be some Republicans in that mix that would be voting for a Joe Biden in order for him to make it across the finish line, because neither party has a majority. And you have a ton of declined state voters who essentially are the deciding factor. But most of them, I think, would fall to Trump, because he's a guy with a proven track record of creating jobs. He's signed paychecks, or his companies have, to tens of thousands of workers at any given time. And he's created an immense amount of wealth. And he understands what's wrong with this country. He understands how to attack some of these issues. Now, admittedly, he's only really talked about a handful of issues, but I just don't see anybody getting up in the morning going, wow, I can't wait for Joe Biden to get in the race. I don't know. Maybe you're out there. If you are, give us a call, 323-746-TALK. We'll take your calls after this break. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Don't expect Hillary to go quietly into that good night. Her team is punching back. And that spells opportunity for the GOP if they could figure out how to seize it. I won't hold my breath. But she's trying to end talk among donors, among supporters, among reporters. She's trying to end talk about Joe Biden, but she's not doing a very good job when she comes out and starts suggesting that we need more gun control. Because I think there's a lot of conservative Democrats who are tired of the default position of their party to be gun confiscation and literally erasing the Second Amendment as if it were never written, because they never miss an opportunity to advocate for the disarmament of every American, all because a deranged individual. Oh, and by the way, did you see the story up on Breitbart about the LGBT killer?
Right.
He had the rainbow hate flag.
Okay, but why are they calling it the rainbow hate flag?
Well, they're calling because they call the Confederate flag a hate flag, and so when you had Dylan Roof out there, sporting the Confederate flag, and now this guy turns out has this rainbow flag in his apartment.
So it should be banned.
And of course they flew it at government buildings.
Right.
And oh yeah, the media forgot to cover it.
Oh, so this weekend we're going to have protests and it'll be banned, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Vester Lee Flanagan. It's weird. Flanagan sounds Irish.
He had like some freckles and stuff.
So we got an Irish black guy.
An Irish gay black man.
Oh yeah, forgot the gay part.
Well, now he's dead. So we have a dead Irish gay black man.
Yeah, who has the gay pride gay pride rainbow flag. And he's a black supremacist, except that he hates black people, or at least black men and white females. So I'm really confused here. What do we ban?
I don't know.
Oh,
this is a tricky one. I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do.
Guns. Blame the gun, not the gunner.
That's right.
Blame the tool, not the doer, not the murderer. Why don't we hold people accountable for their actions rather than worry about their motives?
What about the accomplice? You know what the accomplice is, right? If the gun,
you got me.
Is the reason? What's the accomplice? The cell
bullet?
phone.
Oh yeah.
For videoing it. Oh my gosh, how did it do that?
Well, I guess we'll have to ban video cameras and ban live newscasts and ban young people from having jobs, minding their own business when they are slaughtered in cold blood. And look, I think the country is reeling, and the country is in shock from the very idea that you could be minding your own business literally with your back turned. Because when you see him with that video camera at the very last second, he comes up behind the young man who is just doing his job. He's just being a cameraman. And then you see that chilling photograph where he holds the gun out, and in literally the next frame, if it were a video, takes this young woman, Allison Parker's life.
And what a coward for doing it behind their back. What a coward.
Yeah, ambushing. There's something specifically evil about ambushing the innocent. At least if somebody can see you coming, they can take some sort of defensive or offensive action to protect their own lives. But to just 1 second be there and the next second to be dead, how does a family cope with that? I don't know. There's no frame of reference. We've never had anything like this happen in this country.
I would not be able to grasp any sort of acceptance if I were either one of their family members.
Yeah, but maybe now that we have a gay man with black skin who hates everybody, maybe this is what it took for us to get over all of this divisiveness and all of this tolerance of the government seizing our rights and becoming a threat to our freedom, all in the name of whatever narrative the left is trying to push. Here, they can't push a narrative. And the next time they do, there always will be a next time. That's why we believe in the Second Amendment here. We believe in freedom. And we've got 1 minute for your phone call. You're on.
Okay, Tim, I know this is tragic and what happened, but the father of the reporter that was killed is already advocating for Second Amendment reformation and, banning guns and more laws. I heard it on the news this morning. He's already advocating for that.
Well,
as tragic as this is, he's already politicizing it, or somebody got to him.
But here's the thing. Thank God we're not ruled by feelings. We're ruled by law. And we have the Constitution to protect us from a government that would like to seize our rights. And that's it. And we will be vigilant. Thanks for the call, by the way.
Sure.
We will be vigilant in defense of liberty. We will be absolutely the defenders of our inalienable rights, because if we don't, who will? And while we feel sympathy and empathy, and we will keep the families in our prayers, we will not allow the government to seize on this tragedy in order to deprive us of our basic, natural, fundamental rights. Hey, we are out of time. I don't do this show alone. I want to thank my wife for letting me, Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, for being an extraordinary producer, Cassie Cassidy, our intrepid guest booker, Sean McNeil, technological genius, all of our sponsors, and you. Without you, we don't have a show. 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday, Radio Free California Network. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show, out.